The year was 2157, and Earth had just survived another atmospheric catastrophe. The small asteroid impact had left humanity praying beneath a perpetually ashen sky. The event, now known simply as the Black Rain, had been the final insult to an already wounded planet. Dr. Min Khan stood at the observation deck of a vantage station, suspended 30 kilometers above what remained of Southeast Asia. His eyes were fixed on monitors displaying atmospheric readings, but his mind was elsewhere, with Mai, his wife. 3 years had passed since the acid storm had taken her. Yet the wound remained fresh. The irony wasn't lost on him. A meteorologist who couldn't predict the storm that would change his life forever. Dr. Khan. Yusef's voice broke through his thoughts. The young engineer's face appeared on the communication screen. We've got anomalous readings from Sector 7, the cloud formations. They're exhibiting non-random movement patterns. Khan's attention snapped back to the present. Show me. The main display filled with live footage from the external cameras. What Khan saw made him question his sanity. The thick, dark clouds that had become Earth's permanent shroud were swirling. Not with the chaotic patterns of weather systems, but with deliberate, almost graceful movements. As lightning flashed within the mass, Khan could swear he saw the silhouette of a human form, massive and ephemeral, hovering on the horizon. Are you seeing this? Yusef's voice trembled. I am, Khan whispered, but I don't believe it. The form lasted only seconds before dispersing. But it was enough. Something had changed in Earth's atmosphere. Something beyond scientific explanation. Run a complete analysis, Khan ordered, his heart racing. And keep this between us for now. As the days passed, reports began flooding in from around the globe. Blue-white lights illuminating cities from above. Rain that condensed into humanoid shapes before touching the ground. Clouds that formed perfect circles above population centers. In New Geneva, the Planetary Security Council convened an emergency session. Khan found himself standing before the world's most powerful leaders, trying to explain the unexplainable. We believe we're witnessing the emergence of a collective atmospheric consciousness, he said, his voice steady despite the absurdity of his words. Our preliminary analysis suggests that the chemical composition of Earth's atmosphere has reached a critical threshold where complex patterns can self-organize. Colonel Isabella Reyes, commander of the Global Air Defense Fleet, leaned forward. You're saying the sky is alive and taking human form? I'm saying something is communicating through atmospheric phenomena, and it's deliberately choosing forms we can recognize. Is it dangerous? The council president's question hung in the air. Khan hesitated. We don't know. But shooting first seems unwise when dealing with something that literally surrounds our planet. The debate raged for hours. The military faction, led by Reyes, advocated for immediate defensive measures, high-altitude EMP weapons to disrupt whatever was organizing the phenomena. The scientific community, represented by Khan and his team, pleaded for caution and further study. In the end, the council compromised, giving Khan's team 2 weeks to establish communication before military intervention would be authorized. Back at Vantage Station, Khan assembled his research team, Yusef handling technical systems, Lin analyzing biochemical signals, and Dara, a linguist specializing in non-human communication patterns. The phenomena are increasing in frequency and complexity, Lin reported, displaying a holographic map dotted with incident markers. Whatever it is, it's growing stronger, or more desperate. Dara suggested, These manifestations could be attempts at communication from an entity that doesn't share our language concepts. Khan nodded. Then we need to create a common language. Yusef, can we modify the atmospheric samplers to emit controlled chemical signals? The engineer considered the question. Theoretically, yes. We could use the high-altitude drones to release specific compound combinations as a response pattern. For 10 days, they worked tirelessly, developing a rudimentary chemical language, simple patterns of elements released into the upper atmosphere, followed by careful observation of responses. Progress was slow, frustrating, but undeniable. The sky entity, as they'd begun calling it, responded with increasingly complex patterns of its own. On the 11th day, everything changed. Khan was awakened by station-wide alarms. He rushed to the command center to find his team already gathered, faces pale as they stared at the main screen. Above New Geneva, where the council was preparing to vote on military action, an enormous atmospheric disturbance had formed. Unlike previous manifestations, this one was unmistakable. A colossal human figure composed of swirling clouds and crackling energy, towering 20 kilometers high. It's directly above the council building, Yusef reported. As they watched, a vortex formed at the center of the figure, drawing upward with tremendous force. Military aircraft scrambled to respond were caught in the pull. Their weapon systems disabled, but the crafts themselves unharmed, set down gently miles away. It's not attacking, Khan realized. It's disarming them. The communications system crackled to life with an incoming transmission from Colonel Reyes. Her usual composure had cracked. Dr. Khan, the council is demanding an explanation. What the hell is happening? It's responding to a threat, Khan replied. Your weapons mobilization triggered a defensive response. These are not the actions of a benign entity, Reyes countered. The council has moved up its timetable. The orbital defense system will be activated in 6 hours. The connection terminated before Khan could argue further. They're going to kill it, Lin whispered. If they can. Yusef added, we don't even know what it really is. Khan paced the command center, mind racing. We need to establish clear communication immediately. Dara, what's our best approach? The linguist looked up from her workstation. We've been assuming it communicates through chemical signals. But what if it's more fundamental? What if it's responding to our collective emotional state? Elaborate, Khan urged. The first major manifestation occurred during worldwide memorial services for the Black Rain victims. The second coincided with global protests against the Council's military response. What if it's sensing our emotional output, our grief, our fear, our hope? It was an outlandish theory, but something about it resonated with Khan. He thought of how the world had collectively grieved after the acid storms, of how that grief had turned to anger, then to desperate hope when the sky phenomena began. If you're right, we need to send a clear emotional signal. Khan said, not chemicals, but feelings. How do we broadcast feelings to the atmosphere? Yusef asked skeptically. Khan's gaze drifted to the emergency shuttle bay. We don't broadcast. We meet it face to face. Despite vehement objections from his team, Khan's mind was made up. If Dara was right, someone needed to directly interact with the atmospheric entity. And as the person who had studied it longest, that someone was him. 2 hours later, Khan sat in the cockpit of a research shuttle, climbing toward the massive cloud formation that still hovered above New Geneva. The entity had maintained its humanoid shape, now glowing with internal lightning that pulsed in regular intervals. Approaching contact altitude. Khan reported back to Vantage Station. The entity appears to be aware of my approach. No defensive reactions detected. Dr. Khan, be careful. Lynn's voice came through. Atmospheric readings around the entity are off the charts. The chemical composition is unlike anything we've recorded. As the shuttle entered the outer boundaries of the cloud formation, Khan felt a strange sensation, a pressure not on his body, but on his mind. Images flashed before him. Burning forests, acidic oceans, species vanishing in an eye blink. He felt a profound sorrow that threatened to overwhelm him, followed by a rage so intense it took his breath away. Then came Mai's face, smiling as she had on their last morning together. It's not showing me its thoughts. Khan gasped into the communicator. It's showing me my own. The shuttle continued deeper into the cloud entity, all instruments failing as the craft was enveloped in blue-white light. Khan felt the pressure in his mind intensify, becoming a presence that seemed to reach into his very soul. And suddenly, he understood. The atmospheric entity wasn't an alien intelligence or a spontaneous consciousness. It was Earth itself, or rather, the collective emotional imprint of humanity upon the Earth. Years of grief, rage, hope, and despair had saturated the atmospheric chemistry, catalyzed by the asteroid impact into something new, a reflection of humanity's relationship with its home. The entity wasn't trying to communicate a message, it was the message. Stop the attack. Khan transmitted to Vantage Station. Tell the Council to stand down. It's not a threat, it's a mirror. But it was too late. From his position inside the entity, Khan could see the orbital platforms powering up, preparing to fire atmospheric dispersal weapons designed to break apart the chemical bonds holding the entity together. In that moment, Khan made his decision. He directed the shuttle toward the heart of the entity, where the energy readings were strongest. If he could somehow prove to the entity, to Earth itself, that not all humans sought destruction, perhaps there was hope for reconciliation. Dr. Khan, what are you doing? Reyes's voice cut through the static. Our sensors show you're moving deeper into the anomaly. Someone needs to listen. Khan replied simply, We've been talking at Earth for centuries. No one ever stopped to listen. As the shuttle penetrated the core of the entity, Khan felt the boundary between himself and the atmospheric presence dissolve. His consciousness expanded, touching millions of minds across the planet. He felt their fear, their wonder, their hope, and they felt his. In that moment of connection, a single thought propagated through the collective consciousness. We are not separate from Earth. We are Earth thinking. Above New Geneva and 100 other cities around the world, the sky entities transformed. The threatening humanoid figures dissolved into billions of tiny points of light that spread across the darkened sky like new stars. Where they touched the polluted atmosphere, the air cleared, revealing patches of blue for the first time in years. In orbit, the weapons platforms powered down as operators watched the spectacle unfold. Inside the heart of the original entity, Khan's shuttle began to fall, its systems overwhelmed by the energy surrounding it. As consciousness slipped away, Khan saw Mai once more, not as a memory, but as a presence, a part of the greater whole that the atmospheric entity had revealed. I understand now, he whispered as darkness took him. The shuttle's emergency systems activated moments before impact, deploying atmospheric braking mechanisms that slowed its descent enough for Khan to survive. He awoke 3 days later in a New Geneva hospital, his body weak but his mind clearer than it had been in years. Colonel Reyes was sitting beside his bed, her expression unreadable. "The Council wants answers," she said without preamble. Khan smiled weakly. "So do I. The phenomena have stopped. The atmospheric readings are stabilizing. People are calling it a miracle, not a miracle." Khan replied. A conversation finally begun. In the weeks that followed, Khan worked tirelessly with his team to develop what they called the Breathing with the Sky protocol, a framework for atmospheric restoration based on a radical new understanding of the interaction between human activity and atmospheric chemistry. The concept was simple, yet revolutionary. The emotional and spiritual state of humanity affected the planet in ways science was only beginning to comprehend. By fostering collective emotional states of healing and harmony, they could literally change the chemistry of the air. It sounded like mysticism to many, but the data was undeniable. In regions where communities gathered in celebration and hope, atmospheric toxin levels decreased measurably. Where conflict and despair reigned, pollution intensified. 6 months after his encounter with the atmospheric entity, Khan stood at Mai's grave in the reclaimed memorial forest outside Ho Chi Minh City. The sky above was clearing, patches of blue expanding day by day as the breathing protocols spread across the globe. "You've become part of the sky now," he whispered to the simple stone marker. "Part of everything." As if in response, a gentle breeze stirred the new leaves on the surrounding trees, carrying the scent of rain. Clean rain, without the acidic bite that had become so familiar. Khan closed his eyes and breathed deeply, feeling the connection that had always been there, waiting to be recognized. Earth would heal, not through technology alone, but through a fundamental shift in humanity's relationship with its home. The sky had spoken, and at last, humanity had begun to listen. As Khan walked back toward the research center where his team awaited, he glanced up at the clearing sky and smiled. The work ahead was enormous, the challenges daunting. But for the first time since Mai's death, since the world had begun its decline, he felt something long forgotten. Hope, rising like the sun through parting clouds. 2 years after the first appearance of the sky entities, much of Earth remained damaged, but the healing had undeniably begun. The Breathing with the Sky protocol had evolved from theoretical framework to global practice, with millions participating in synchronized emotional projection events designed to accelerate atmospheric restoration. Vantage Station had been repurposed as the coordination center for the global effort, its advanced sensors monitoring the subtle changes in atmospheric composition that accompanied each collective emotional shift. The data had convinced even the most skeptical scientists. Consciousness, in some form, affected physical reality at a fundamental level. Dr. Khan had become the reluctant face of the movement, though he insisted that the discovery belonged to Earth itself. His team had expanded to include psychologists, spiritual leaders, and community organizers alongside the scientists and engineers. The boundaries between disciplines, like the boundary between humanity and its environment, had begun to dissolve. The Eastern Pacific sector is showing a 15% reduction in particulate matter following yesterday's synchronized meditation. Lin reported during the morning briefing, acid levels in precipitation have dropped to almost pre-crisis levels. Europe and North Africa still show resistance, Youssef added, highlighting the regions on the holographic globe. Political tensions are affecting cohesion. Khan nodded, unsurprised. The regions experiencing conflict or severe resource scarcity consistently showed poorer atmospheric recovery rates. It was a feedback loop. Environmental degradation led to suffering, which led to negative emotional states, which further impacted the environment. Breaking the cycle required addressing both the physical and emotional dimensions simultaneously. It was, perhaps, the most complex challenge humanity had ever faced. We need to send support teams to the struggling regions. Khan decided, not just technical assistance, but cultural liaisons who understand the local context. The Council's still pushing for more traditional geoengineering approaches. Dara reminded him. They see the breathing protocol as too slow, too dependent on human factors. Then we'll show them the data again, Khan said firmly, and remind them what happened the last time they ignored Earth's response. Colonel Reyes, who had become an unexpected ally after witnessing the sky entity's transformation, spoke up from her position near the door. The military contingent is coming around. The aerial display units have been particularly effective in demonstrating the atmospheric response to coordinated emotional projection. The displays she referred to were specially equipped aircraft that released chemical tracers during global breathing events, making the subtle atmospheric changes visible to the naked eye. The sight of pollution literally dissolving in real time had convinced many who might otherwise have dismissed the approach as pseudoscience. We're making progress, Khan acknowledged. But we need to accelerate. The damage to the upper atmosphere remains critical. The upper atmosphere, particularly the ozone layer, had been severely depleted by the combination of industrial pollution and the asteroid impact. Its restoration was proving far more challenging than the lower atmospheric cleanup, requiring more intense and sustained emotional coherence than had yet been achieved. I've been working on a proposal, Khan continued, activating his own data display. A global synchronization event, more ambitious than anything we've attempted. The team leaned forward as he outlined the concept. A worldwide moment of collective focus, with participants united not just in simultaneous practice, but in shared emotional intent. A remembrance of those lost, transmuted into hope for the future. You want to recreate what happened when you merged with the entity, Lynn said softly, understanding dawning in her eyes. Khan nodded. On a global scale, not one person connecting with Earth's consciousness, but millions, all at once. Is that even possible? Youssef looked skeptical. We won't know until we try. Khan replied, but the mathematical models suggest that with enough participants, the effect could be exponential rather than linear. The planning took months. Regional coordinators were trained, communication systems established, governmental cooperation secured, often reluctantly. The date was set for the 3rd anniversary of the sky entity's appearance, a day already marked for commemoration in most nations. As the day approached, Khan found himself increasingly withdrawn, spending long hours in solitary meditation. The memories of his encounter with the atmospheric entity had never faded, but neither had they fully integrated into his understanding of reality. The experience remained separate, almost dreamlike. Yet it had changed the course of human history. The night before the global event, Khan stood on the external observation deck of Vantage Station, looking down at the Earth below. Cloud patterns swirled across the surface. Natural now, without the deliberate movements that had characterized the entity manifestations. Yet Khan couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching, waiting. Couldn't sleep either? Reyes's voice came from behind him. Khan shook his head without turning. Too much at stake. The colonel moved to stand beside him at the railing. In the 2 years since the event, She had transformed from military hardliner to one of the breathing protocol's most effective advocates, using her authority to overcome institutional resistance. "Do you ever wonder if we misunderstood?" she asked after a long silence. "If what happened was just an atmospheric anomaly that we projected meaning onto?" Khan considered the question. "I've questioned everything else, but never that. What I experienced inside the entity was real. I believe you." Reyes said simply, "I have to. Otherwise, we're about to make a lot of people engage in the largest group therapy session in history for nothing," despite himself. Khan smiled. "When you put it that way, it might be worth doing regardless." The morning of the event dawned clear over New Geneva, where Khan and the core team had gathered at the council building. The symbolism was deliberate. The place where humanity had nearly made its greatest mistake would now host its attempt at redemption. Billions around the world prepared to participate, either in public gatherings or private spaces, following the simple protocol developed by Khan's team. A period of remembrance for what had been lost, followed by a conscious transition to gratitude for what remained, culminating in a projection of hope and healing directed toward the sky. As the designated hour approached, Khan took his position on the council building's roof garden, surrounded by his team and key council members. The sky above was partly cloudy, with the bluish tint that had slowly returned to Earth's atmosphere over the past 2 years. "1 minute to synchronization," Youssef announced, monitoring the global coordination feed. Khan closed his eyes, centering himself in the practice he had developed since his encounter. First came the grief, for the millions of others lost to environmental catastrophe, for the species extinct and ecosystems destroyed. He allowed the sorrow to fill him completely, acknowledging its weight and validity. Next came gratitude, for survival, for the resilience of life, for the chance to begin again with greater wisdom. The transition was difficult but necessary, a conscious choice to move beyond loss without denying it. Finally, hope, not blind optimism, but the determined belief that healing was possible, that humanity and Earth could forge a new relationship built on mutual recognition. As Khan completed his emotional progression, he became aware of a subtle change in the air around him. Opening his eyes, he saw the clouds above beginning to glow with an inner light, similar to but distinct from the phenomena of 2 years earlier. Around the world, according to the incoming reports, the same effect was manifesting. Clouds illuminated from within, air becoming more transparent as particulate matter seemed to simply dissolve. Then, for a brief moment that was nonetheless captured by thousands of cameras, the sky above New Geneva once again took human form, not the towering, threatening figure of before, but a vast, gentle presence that seemed to embrace the city below. Khan felt tears on his cheeks as he recognized the expression on that ephemeral face. It was the same look of love and forgiveness he remembered from Mai in their happiest moments together. The manifestation lasted only seconds before dispersing into a shower of luminous particles that drifted slowly toward the ground, visible against the darkening evening sky like falling stars. Where they touched the earth, plants responded with visible growth spurts, reaching upward as if to catch more of the mysterious energy. In the days that followed, environmental monitoring stations would record unprecedented reductions in atmospheric toxins and a significant strengthening of the ozone layer. But in that moment, standing on the roof with tears streaming down his face, Khan understood something that transcended scientific measurement. The boundary between humanity and its environment had never been real. The atmospheric entity hadn't been a separate consciousness making contact. It had been Earth and humanity, remembering that they were one system, one body, one mind. It worked. Lynn whispered beside him, her own face wet with tears. It actually worked. Not an it, Khan corrected gently. Us. We worked. The global synchronization event became an annual tradition, refined and expanded each year. By 2165, 8 years after the first appearance of the sky entities, Earth's atmosphere had substantially recovered. The permanent cloud cover had dissipated, revealing a sky bluer than many young people had ever seen. Acid rain became a historical term rather than a daily reality. Vantage Station evolved into Earth's primary environmental monitoring center, with Dr. Khan serving as its director until his retirement in 2172. The science of consciousness-environment interaction became a respected discipline, with research centers established worldwide to explore the mechanisms behind what had once seemed mystical. On his last day as director, Khan returned to the external observation deck where he had spent so many hours contemplating the planet below. At 73, his hair had gone completely white, his face lined with the years of struggle and ultimate triumph. But his eyes remained sharp, missing nothing of the vibrant blue-green world that stretched beneath the station. "Quite a view," said a familiar voice. Colonel Reyes, now General Reyes, head of the Earth Protection Force that had replaced the old military structures, joined him at the railing. She too had aged, but retained the straight-backed posture and direct gaze that had always characterized her. "Worth fighting for." Khan agreed. "The Council is naming the new atmospheric research initiative after you." Reyes informed him, "The Khan Protocols has a nice ring to it." Khan shook his head. "I've told them a dozen times that I wasn't the discoverer, just the messenger. People need heroes, Doctor. They need stories with names and faces. What they need is to remember that they're part of something larger." Khan countered, "Personalizing it misses the point." Reyes smiled slightly. "Still the idealist. Always." Khan admitted without apology. They stood in companionable silence, watching the sunset paint the atmosphere in shades of orange and purple, colors made more vibrant by the cleaner air. "Do you think we'll see them again?" Reyes finally asked. "The sky entities?" Khan considered the question. There had been no major manifestations since the third global synchronization event, though sensitive instruments occasionally detected organized patterns in cloud formations that defied conventional meteorological explanation. "I think they're always here," he said at last. "Not separate beings, but expressions of the relationship between consciousness and environment. We just don't always have the eyes to see." "Poetic," Reyes commented, "but not very scientific. The best science often isn't." Khan replied with a smile. "The most important discoveries happen at the boundaries where our existing frameworks break down." Later that evening, after the farewell ceremonies and the well-wishes from colleagues, Khan took a shuttle down to Earth. His new home awaited in the restored forest region where Mai's memorial stood. After so many years in orbit, he had decided it was time to feel soil beneath his feet again. As the shuttle descended through the atmosphere, Khan watched the transition from the blackness of space to the blue of sky. A journey he had made hundreds of times, but never tired of. This time, however, something was different. For a brief moment, as the craft passed through a cloud layer, Khan felt the same mental pressure he had experienced inside the original sky entity. A presence touching his mind, acknowledging him. Then it was gone, leaving behind only a sense of profound peace. The shuttle landed at the small regional spaceport, where a ground transport waited to take Khan to his new home. The driver, a young woman who introduced herself as Thi, seemed starstruck to be transporting the famous Dr. Khan. My grandmother was in Ho Chi Minh City during the first Sky event, she told him as they drove through the lush countryside. She said it changed everything, not just the environment, but how people thought about their place in the world. Your grandmother was right, Khan replied, though I think the change had been coming for a long time. The sky entities just made it impossible to ignore. Do you think something like that could happen again? Thea asked. If we started forgetting the lessons? Khan gazed out the window at the flourishing landscape. So different from the blighted world of 15 years earlier. I think Earth always finds ways to remind us who we are. The question is whether we're willing to listen before the reminders become too dramatic. His new home was a modest structure built in harmony with the surrounding forest. Its living walls incorporating native plants that provided both insulation and air purification, solar collectors and atmospheric moisture harvesters made it entirely self-sufficient. The standard for new construction in the post-crisis era. After Thi departed, Khan spent the evening settling in, arranging the few possessions he had brought from Vantage Station. Among them was a small holographic projector containing the only image he had of Mai. A candid moment captured during a hike in the mountains years before the acid storms. He placed it carefully on a shelf near the window, positioning it so that the morning light would touch it first. As night fell, Khan stepped outside onto the small meditation platform that extended from his living area into the forest canopy. Above, stars shone with a clarity that had been impossible during the years of atmospheric pollution. A gentle breeze carried the sense of soil and growing things. Tomorrow, he would visit Mai's memorial, the first of many such visits in his new life. But tonight, beneath the stars that had always oriented him, Khan simply breathed, taking in the air of a healing world and releasing his own small contribution to its continued recovery. Somewhere in the darkness, an owl called, leaves rustled, the complex symphony of a healthy ecosystem played around him, a music that had nearly been silenced forever. Khan tilted his head back, gazing at the night sky. We're listening now, he whispered. We're learning. And though there was no visible response, no dramatic manifestation or glowing presence, Khan felt heard nonetheless, not by a separate entity, but by the vast, interconnected system of which he was an integral part. Earth would continue to face challenges. Humanity would sometimes forget the lessons so painfully learned. But the fundamental shift in understanding, the recognition that consciousness and environment were aspects of a single reality, had taken root too deeply to be entirely lost again. As Khan finally turned to go inside, a shooting star traced a brilliant path across the heavens. He smiled, remembering how Mai had always made wishes on such celestial visitors. No need to wish tonight, he murmured, just gratitude. The star faded, leaving only its afterimage against the darkness. But in that lingering glow, Khan could almost see a human face, smiling, serene, at peace. Just as Earth itself had finally begun to be. The morning dawned clear and bright, sunlight filtering through the forest canopy to dapple the floor of Khan's new home. He awoke feeling rested in a way that had eluded him during his years on Vantage Station. The subtle but meaningful difference between processed station air and the living breath of a forest. After a simple breakfast of locally grown fruits and grains, Khan prepared for his visit to Mai's memorial. He dressed in the traditional white garments of mourning, though this visit felt less like grief and more like reunion. The path to the memorial grounds wound through the recovering forest, once barren from acid rain but now thriving under the new forestry protocols. Young trees stretched skyward beside the weathered trunks of survivors from the environmental collapse. Undergrowth teemed with returning wildlife, insects buzzing, small reptiles darting across the path, birds calling from the branches above. The memorial itself stood in a natural clearing, a simple stone marker among hundreds of others commemorating those lost in the acid storms. Mai's bore only her name and the dates that bracketed her life, along with a small engraving of a cloud, Khan's addition after the sky entity events. He knelt before the stone, placing his palm against its sun-warmed surface. "I've come home," he said simply. For an hour, he sat in meditation, not speaking further but allowing his mind to trace the journey that had brought him to this moment. The grief that had nearly destroyed him. The cosmic intervention that had given his life new purpose. The years of work that had helped heal not just Earth's atmosphere, but humanity's relationship with its home. As Khan rose to leave, a young family entered the clearing, parents with a child of perhaps 5 or 6 years. The girl ran ahead, fascinated by a butterfly, while her parents moved more solemnly among the memorial stones. Seeing Khan, they paused, recognition dawning in their eyes. "Dr. Khan?" the father asked hesitantly. Khan nodded, expecting the usual awkward celebrity encounter. Instead, the mother stepped forward and simply took his hands in hers. "My sister was on your team at Vantage Station, Lin Tran. She told us what really happened inside the entity, what you sacrificed." Khan felt a surge of emotion at Lin's name. His former colleague had transferred to the Antarctic Restoration Project 3 years earlier, continuing the work of healing Earth's most damaged regions. "Lin is one of the finest scientists I've ever known," he said sincerely. "How is she?" "Thriving," the woman replied with a smile. "The Antarctic work suits her. She always did prefer cold to heat. She speaks of you often." Their daughter had circled back, abandoning the butterfly to stare curiously at Khan. "Are you the Sky Talker?" she asked bluntly. Her parents looked embarrassed, but Khan knelt to the child's level, smiling. "Is that what they call me in schools now?" She nodded solemnly. "Teacher says you taught people how to listen to the world again, that you helped the sky remember how to be blue." "That's a good way to put it," Khan acknowledged. "But it wasn't just me. It was everyone learning together. Can you teach me how to talk to the sky?" The girl's eyes were serious, without the playfulness one might expect from such a question. Khan considered his response carefully. The new educational curriculum included age-appropriate lessons on environmental consciousness. But the deeper practices of the breathing protocol were typically introduced only in adolescence. "You already know how," he told her finally. "When you feel happy or sad or scared or brave, the sky feels it too. All you have to do is remember that you're connected, that there's no real boundary between you and the world around you." The girl frowned, processing this. "But I can't see through walls or fly like birds." Khan chuckled. "True. Our bodies have limits, but our impact doesn't stop at our skin. Every breath you take connects you with every other living thing. The air you breathe out becomes part of the sky, and then part of the rain, and then part of the plants and animals, and then part of me again." The girl concluded, eyes widening with understanding. "Exactly," Khan confirmed, impressed by her quickness. "That's the most important thing to remember." The parents smiled gratefully as they moved on, the child now walking with exaggerated care, as if newly aware of her connection to the earth beneath her feet. Khan watched them go, feeling a familiar bittersweet ache. He and Mai had planned to have children before the acid storms took her. In some alternate reality, perhaps they would have had a daughter like that, curious, bright, already intuiting the interconnectedness of all things. As he turned to leave the memorial grounds, Khan noticed something unusual in the sky above. A cloud formation moving against the prevailing winds, forming a pattern too regular to be random chance. Most people would see nothing significant, but Khan's years of atmospheric study had attuned him to such anomalies. The clouds were forming concentric circles, like ripples spreading from a central point, directly above Mai's memorial. Khan stood transfixed, watching as the pattern held for several minutes before slowly dissipating back into natural formations. No one else in the memorial park seemed to notice, continuing their quiet remembrances without looking up. Was it coincidence? A localized atmospheric phenomenon with a mundane explanation? Or something more? A final acknowledgement from the consciousness that had once manifested as towering human figures in the sky? Khan chose to believe the latter, though he knew better than most how easily humans projected meaning onto natural events. Sometimes, he had learned, the meaning was the point, not an objective truth to be proven or disproven, but a subjective experience that changed how one moved through the world. That night, he wrote in his journal for the first time in years, recording not just the cloud phenomenon, but his encounter with Lin's family and the insightful child. The practice had been recommended by his counselors after Mai's death, but abandoned during the hectic years of the breathing protocol development. Now, in retirement, he found himself drawn back to it, the simple act of witnessing his own experience. The sky remembers. He wrote in conclusion, and so do we, finally. In the months that followed, Khan settled into the rhythms of his new life. 3 days each week, he taught at the nearby University of Environmental Consciousness, helping to train the next generation of atmospheric scientists in both the technical and philosophical dimensions of their field. The rest of his time was divided between writing his memoirs, consulting remotely with ongoing restoration projects, and simply being present in the recovering forest he now called home. News occasionally reached him from Vantage Station, where his former team continued their work under new leadership. The global atmospheric healing had accelerated beyond even the most optimistic projections. With ozone levels approaching pre-industrial norms and acid rain now a rarity rather than a constant threat. More significant to Khan were the changes in human society that had accompanied the environmental recovery. The breathing protocol had evolved from crisis response to cultural foundation, with daily practices of environmental consciousness now as common as personal hygiene in most communities. Children grew up understanding their connection to Earth's systems, not as abstract science, but as lived reality. It wasn't utopia. Human conflicts continued. Resources remained unevenly distributed, and pockets of environmental degradation persisted in regions where old thinking dominated. But the trajectory had undeniably shifted toward healing rather than harm, toward integration rather than exploitation. 1 year into his retirement, Khan received an unexpected communication from the council. They were planning a 15th anniversary commemoration of the Sky Entity events and requested his participation as keynote speaker. His initial impulse was to decline. He had said all he wished to say about those days, and the prospect of becoming a living monument to the past held little appeal. But the invitation included a detail that changed his mind. The ceremony would feature the dedication of a new global initiative called Atmospheric Consciousness Integration, designed to extend the breathing protocol's principles into human activities previously considered unrelated to environmental impact, economics, governance, conflict resolution, even art and cultural expression. It was, in essence, the fulfillment of the vision Khan had articulated in those early days after his encounter with the sky entity. A complete reimagining of humanity's place within Earth systems. 2 weeks later, Khan found himself back in New Geneva, standing before the assembled council and a global audience of billions connected through holographic presence technology. The council chamber had been redesigned since his last visit, its formerly austere interior now incorporating living walls similar to those in his forest home, with a retractable ceiling that currently stood open to the sky above. As Khan took his position at the speaker's platform, he glanced upward at the blue expanse dotted with white clouds. 15 years earlier, that same sky had taken human form, changed the course of history, and in a very real sense, saved humanity from itself. 15 years ago, he began, his voice steady despite the emotion he felt. I entered what we then called the atmospheric entity, a phenomenon beyond our scientific understanding. I went seeking answers, but found instead a question. What does it mean to be truly at home on this planet? A respectful silence held the chamber as he continued. The answer, I discovered, wasn't about controlling Earth or even protecting it, as if it were something separate from ourselves. It was about remembering our place within a living system that includes but transcends us. The sky entities weren't visitors or invaders. They were mirrors, reflecting back our collective impact on the world we inhabit. Khan paused, surveying the faces before him. Council members from nations around the world, scientific colleagues, cultural leaders, and through the holographic interfaces, ordinary citizens joining from homes and community centers across the globe. For millennia, humanity developed under the illusion of separation, that we could act upon Earth without Earth acting upon us. The environmental crises that culminated in the black rain and the acid storms forced us to confront that illusion. But it was the sky entities that finally shattered it completely. Above, through the open ceiling, clouds drifted in patterns that seemed, to Khan's trained eye, just a little too purposeful to be entirely random. The Atmospheric Consciousness Integration Initiative we dedicate today represents the next step in our collective journey. Not just healing the damage we've done, but reimagining what it means to be human in relationship with our planetary home. It's no longer enough to reduce harm. We must actively participate in Earth's flourishing. As Khan concluded his address, a soft rain began to fall through the open ceiling, not the acidic downpours of the past, but clean, life-giving water that sparkled in the chamber's natural lighting. No one moved to close the retractable roof, understanding the moment's symbolism. The droplets touched Khan's upturned face like a blessing, each one a reminder of the water cycle that connected all living things. The breath of forests, becoming clouds, becoming rain, becoming rivers returning to the sea. Over and over, in an endless dance of relationship. In that moment, as water from the sky mingled with tears on his cheeks, Khan felt complete. The journey that had begun in grief with Mai's death had transformed into something he could never have imagined. A new way of being human on a healing Earth. The sky had spoken. Humanity had listened. And together they had begun to write a new story. One in which Earth would never again grieve silently. Nor would humanity ever again mistake itself for separate from the world that gave it life. As the gentle rain continued to fall, someone in the chamber began to sing. An old folk melody with new words about renewal and connection. Others joined, the sound swelling until it filled the space with harmonic resonance. Khan closed his eyes, listening. In the music of human voices and falling rain, in the subtle movements of air currents and the distant rumble of thunder, he heard something that transcended language, the ongoing conversation between humanity and its home, no longer ignored, no longer silenced. Earth speaking, and humanity finally, fully, joyfully answering.